That's Just Good Teaching with me, Deanna Smith, where I share practical and easy to implement A-bar teaching strategies that are actually just good teaching. Today we're talking about all of the things that you should do before you close out for the end of the year. I know the end of the year is fast approaching. Some of you might be even watching this after the school year is officially already ended, but there's still some time to set yourself up for success and lay a strong foundation for the rest of the year, for your summer, and for the future. So these are just a few quick and easy tips, things that you can do before you close out to make sure that you end the year on the highest note possible. I, of course, have to throw in something that you should definitely start to put on your radar for the end of the year and summer is picking up your copy of my book, Rooted in Joy, which is all about building inclusive and joyful classroom communities that are rooted in equity. That is definitely going to be a must read for you if you're hoping to have a really joyful and inclusive and just highly productive classroom next year. So that's one easy thing that you can do. You can just head on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble to go ahead and pre-order that. That way it makes its way to you this summer as soon as it becomes available. But other than that, let's jump into it. Let's talk about some things that you can do before closeout to set yourself up for success for next year and to make sure that this year ends on the best note possible. Let's go. So the first thing that you need to do before you close out this year is make sure that you are still finding time to have some joy and some fun with your students. For most of us, this is probably going to be the last time that those students are going to be in your classroom. And I know it can get hectic with testing, closeout, conferences, grades, all of the above, but it's still really important to carve out some time to build those long-lasting memories with your students, just in case you don't have the pleasure of having them in your class again. What can this look like? Well, of course, the end of the year is going to be filled with things like field day, ice cream parties, class parties, but it could also be something as simple as just having an extra long recess in the last week of school and actually going and playing with the students, bringing in a fun craftivity at the last week of school and actually participating with the students, or just scheduling a fun afternoon with them where you're actually able to participate. A lot of times when we plan things for our kids, we think about them having a good time and being joyful, but we don't include ourselves because we're doing a bunch of other things. So when you think of that last hoorah with your kids, make sure it's something that you can also participate in and build in those memories. Bonus tip, take some pictures if you're able to at your school. That way you can always look back on this class and this school year. So that's the first thing to make sure that you do before you close out the end of the year. The next thing that you should do before you start to close out for the end of the year is make sure that you document the practices that actually worked. It sounds silly to say, but we forget a lot more than we realize. Sometimes the summer drags on and we get a new class and we just get caught up in the whirlwind. But it's really important to take some time out to think about and think critically about what really worked this year, what went well. What are some practices that you definitely want to bring with you into the next year? What are some hacks or some breakthroughs that you had with students that you want to make sure that you take a note of? Then next year, when you're in the thick of it, when it's like October and the kids are kind of bouncing off the walls and you can't wait till Thanksgiving break, you can look back on those practices that were working for you last year and see if some of those you'll be able to implement this next year. So make sure you take the time to actually know what worked and what went really well this year before you start to close out. And on the flip side of that, you're going to want to think about the things that didn't work so well this year. It's more fun to think about the practices that led your students in your classroom to success, but it's just as important to write down what didn't work and what you might need to tweak for next year. You're remembering things a lot better right now than you will over the summer. The details will start to fade and things will get a little bit hazy and you'll have a whole nother set of kids to prepare for. So now really is the best time to sit down and think about what really went not so good this year and some ideas that you might have for how to improve on it for next year. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. You could probably do the reflection for what worked well and what didn't work well in just even about an hour, but give yourself that time to really think back and reflect. And that way you're going to be so grateful that you made some notes next year when it's time to start mapping out what everything is going to look like for your next group of students. So take a little time out to write down what didn't go that well this year. The next thing that you want to make sure that you do before you close out the end of the year, aside from all of the basic things like cleaning up your classroom and organizing and getting all your grades in, is making sure you take the time to thank your families. Even if you have a family that's moving on to a different school and you don't know if you'll ever interact with them again, it's so meaningful and so important to just make sure that they get that last little thank you. Just thank them for their partnership, thank them for working with you, especially if you had families that were highly involved, that came in, that sent snacks, that were really responsive, that just communicated with you in a really effective way. You want to make sure that you send that affirmation and thank them. And I recommend this for two reasons. Number one, it's going to help those families know that their work is seen and appreciated and kind of give them the boost to keep communicating that way or to keep doing it for their next teacher. And secondly, it just feels good for you too. When you leave the year thinking about the things that went well and leave the year really thinking about gratitude and appreciation, you set yourself up for success next year as well, because you're opening your mind and your heart towards the positive things that are going to keep coming your way. So in the chaos of the year, there's so many things that probably won't go right and that will feel really rushed and really stressful to do. But take a little time out to thank those families that made this year amazing for you. And I guarantee you it will give you a little boost that you might need just to get through the rest of the year. The last thing that you need to do before the end of the year is make sure that you create a schedule. And you're probably thinking, Deanna, I am not about to schedule anything this summer. I'm about to live my best life. And I am here for it. I support you. But it actually makes a lot of sense to schedule in that free time and those times to recharge. Y'all, the thing about summer is it goes by really fast. And there'll probably be a lot of responsibilities that you have, whether you have children or vacations or family, or you're taking extra classes to learn, new things, or maybe you're looking to switch schools and you're looking for a different job this summer. So your summer will go by, and I want to make sure that you have some time to really recharge and relax. So make sure you schedule at least 2 weeks. And if it helps you, actually put it in your calendar like rest, capital letters, REST, rest week. And then you will hold yourself accountable to actually taking that time to rest and relax and to feel a little rejuvenated. Now, if you're anything like me, you might start the summer with the intention of not working and then end up working a little bit. I always said I wasn't going to work, but I was so excited for my next round of kids and I was so ready to go that I ended up doing a few things. And I think that that's okay if it's what you want to do. But you do want to make sure that you schedule in that rest time as a buffer. So for example, if you're thinking about working this summer, maybe for the first 2 weeks you don't work and then you spend a week or two working. And then for the next 2 weeks, you don't do anything at all again. But make sure that you schedule some relaxation time. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Maybe you're going on a great, fancy European vacation. Maybe you're going to Disney, or maybe it's just a staycation right in your own hometown. Whatever that looks like, take the time out before the end of the school year to schedule some rest time. And then you can also kind of see that on your calendar. So on the last couple of days when everything's crazy and everything is everywhere, you can look over and say like, oh yeah, I have a couple of days of rest coming my way. So make sure before you close out and before you turn in your keys for the year and head back home with your car full of teacher totes and all the things that you're taking with you, make sure that you put on your schedule a few days or a few weeks to rest. All right, y'all. Are you ready for a little extra credit bonus tip? This is what I personally would do. I call it extra credit because I know a lot of teachers are just not really in the headspace to start thinking about this, and that is totally a-okay. But if you are, and you're like me, and you like to get ahead, here's a couple extra credit bonus tip things that I would do at the end of the year before I closed out. The first thing I would do is start to think about what I want my classroom to look like as far as setup goes. You probably won't be able to put things up because a lot of times our schools ask us to take everything down by the end of the year. But when you have an idea in mind, then when you actually start to go shopping towards, end of July, August, you have an idea and you don't have to brainstorm and you already know what you're looking for. You can take advantage of all the sales and you can kind of skip the indecisive, like, what do I want to do with my classroom phase, and just kind of already have it mapped out and already make a supply list. And then it's really easy when things start to go on sale, and things get swooped up so fast. But when things start to go on sale, when it's time to go back, you already have an idea of what you're looking for. Another thing that you can think about is if you're going to make any big classroom management system changes or any really big major changes to how you do things in your classroom, those are better when you have a little bit of a runway, when you have some prep time, when you can think about it. Again, this is totally optional. It's extra credit. And a lot of teachers don't do this, and that's okay. And they still have amazing classrooms. But if you do want to do a little bit of work, it doesn't hurt to kind of start thinking about what that will be like. And that way, on those days where you do have a little bit of capacity, or you want to read a book that maybe will help you with your teaching practice, you can pick it up and start to think about what your actual classroom management system will look like. And a little spoiler alert, I also have a totally free workshop on setting up your classroom for success for the next year. That is going to be dropping very soon. So if you're not already, make sure that you're following me on Instagram and that you're on my mailing list. That way, if you are interested in participating in that workshop or getting the recording for when you're ready, you can have the info for that. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. And you can also check the description box for the link to join my newsletter so that you never miss anything. But those are for teachers who, maybe you're a little bit further advanced in your career, or you know that you're going to have a slow summer. It doesn't hurt to start laying the foundation for next year at all and start to kind of think about what you want your classroom to look like. So that's your little extra credit tip. Obviously, still make sure that you find plenty of time to rest, but sometimes it's good to get a head start.